Mathematics has its grammar just like any language. Grammar provides the rules that allows us to write down ideas so that a reader can understand them. A critical set of those rules is called the order of operations. The order of operations allows us to read an expression and interpret it as intended. It allows us to understand what the author meant. For instance, the below expression could mean many different things without an agreed upon order of operations. How would you evaluate this expression? We've got 8 minus 5, and then times 5, times 3, minus 4 squared, divided by 2, plus 8 divided by 4, plus 3 minus 2. There's a lot of different operations going on. Should we do the subtraction first because it's all the way to the left? Should we do the squared first because it's an exponent? Maybe we should do all of the division first, or maybe we should just go in order, right? What would you say is first could be different than what I say or what the person next to you says. So that's why it's important to have the order of operations. Also, using parentheses will make your life much easier. It's such a great tool in mathematics. Each time you do an operation, we can keep the result in parentheses until we use it for the next operation. We'll be able to read our own work and avoid mistakes. Parentheses never hurt. When you're done, you can then read each step you did, and you should be able to check your work. Also, when you substitute a value into an expression, you should put it in parentheses first. That'll save you a lot of trouble. A lot of times in class, if you make a mistake or on an assessment, your teacher will ask you, did you use parentheses? It's one of the first questions because we know what can get you in a lot of trouble if you don't use parentheses. So it never hurts. Just when in doubt, use parentheses, and you'll see what we mean in a minute. Now, going back to the order of operations, what exactly is the order? And one acronym used for the order is PEMDAS. PEMDAS stands for parentheses, that's what the P is for, exponents and roots from the E, multiplication and division from the M and the D, and addition and subtraction from the A and the S. To help you remember that, you might have heard the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." That's a popular phrase that each word starts with the letter for PEMDAS. Again, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So that can just help you remember the order of operations. And this order helps you read an expression, but it also helps you write expressions that others can read. Now, since parentheses are always done first, you can always eliminate confusion by putting parentheses around what you want to be done first, because the order of operations always says to do the parentheses first. It always starts with a P. And they may not be needed, but they don't ever hurt. Again, when in doubt, use parentheses. Another thing to note is that even though parentheses always comes first followed by exponents, the multiplication and division and the addition and subtraction steps are not always done in that order. When you're looking at the multiplication and division, that's done reading from left to right. Even though the M comes before the D in the acronym PEMDAS, you might be doing the division first, depending on if it's more to the left of an expression. Same thing with addition and subtraction. It is read from left to right. Even though the letter A comes before S in the acronym, you might be doing subtraction first if it is more to the left than addition. It's not a perfect acronym, but it's something just used to help us. And let's see it in an actual example. Let's go back to that very long and operation-filled expression. We had 8 minus 5 times 3 minus 4 squared divided by 2 plus 8 divided by 4 plus 3 minus 2. And again, at first we were like, what should we do first? We all had our own opinions. But now, using the order of operations, everybody's answer should be first. Using our acronym of PEMDAS, you have to do all the operations in parentheses first. So we have 8 minus 5 in parentheses, so we'll do that first. We'll change that to 3. And we have in parentheses 3 minus 2, so we'll change that to a 1. That takes care of the P in PEMDAS. That's your first operation in the order of operations. Then we have E for exponents, and then if there were any roots. So here we have an exponent of 2. We have 4 squared. So we are going to now do that and change it to 16, 4 times 4. Next, we're going to do all the multiplication and division, but again, we're going to read from left to right. It's done in one swift step. So here, all the way to the left, we first have a multiplication operation of 3 times 5 times 3, or 3 times 5 is 15, times 3 is 45. Then we have the operation of 16 divided by 2, so that's why it gets changed to 8. And we have 8 divided by 4, which is why it gets changed to 2. So we've done all the multiplication and division in one step, reading from left to right. Finally, in PEMDAS, we have the A and the S at the end, so we're doing all the addition and the subtraction, again, reading from left to right. So we're going to do 45 minus 8, that's 37. Then we have plus 2 plus 1. So still reading from left to right, then we'll do 37 plus 2, which is 39. Bringing down the plus 1, that last addition is what gets us our final answer of 40. So from that huge first expression given with all those operations, using PEMDAS, using the order of operations, every single person, every single student should always get 40 because we're all following the same order. There's no more question. 40 is the only correct answer using the order of operations. Let's look at another example. Not as many operations, but again, we have to remember PEMDAS. We have to follow the order of operations. So let's simplify this step by step. We have -7 plus -3 times the quantity of 5 minus -2. So what should we do first? Again, we have to keep in mind PEMDAS. So the first thing we're going to do is 5 minus -2. 5 minus -2 is coming from the brackets. Now, even though the acronym is PEMDAS, brackets are a form of a parenthesis. It's a grouping symbol. You might have even heard that sometimes PEMDAS is referred to as GEMDAS for grouping symbols, but the P is just, again, symbolizing that anything grouped together, anything in parentheses, or in this case brackets, has to be done first. So we're going to do 5 minus -2, which is 5 plus 2, which is 7. So that will get changed to a 7. So that gives us -7 plus -3 now times 7. What should we do next? Well, now there's no exponents or roots, so we're working on multiplication and division. We only have multiplication here. There's no division in the expression. So we're going to do the -3 times 7. That's where we get the -21. So that'll give us -7 plus -21. So our last step would to actually now do the addition, right? We're in the A and the S of the order of operations. So we're doing -7 plus -21, which is -7 minus 21, which gives us the -28. So we're simplifying step by step, but again, everybody in the room or anybody who's ever simplifying this problem should always arrive at -28 because of the order of operations. Let's look at one more. Again, when there's multiple groups or multiple ways to use the parentheses step in PEMDAS in the order of operations, right? We want to simplify this step by step. I'm going to write the acronym. It's always a good idea to write it down. It's just a visual of, again, the steps you need to take. And since the first one is P, we actually have 3 different groupings here. We have 3 different sets that are the P. So I'm going to do it from left to right. Even though we're doing it in the same step, technically, right? The sets of parentheses aren't interacting with each other. We're doing everything on the inside, so it's not affecting the other groups that are on the outside. So the first one I'm going to take a look at is this first group of -9.3 divided by 3 minus -4. And as you can see, within the group itself, within those brackets, there is multiple operations. So we would follow the order of operations within that as well. So we would do negative 9.3 divided by 3 minus negative 4. So then we're going to do the division first. We're going to do negative 9.3 divided by 3, which gives us negative 3.1. And then we're going to do that subtraction, which we're actually changing minus a negative. We're changing it to a plus. And if we do that addition of negative 3.1 plus 4, we end up with 0.9. So that first P, that first grouping, is going to give us 0.9. We can then move on to the second grouping and do negative 3 times negative 4.7 plus 8.9. Again, within that group, we're going to follow the order of operations also. So we're here between multiplication and division. We're going to do the multiplication first. So we have negative 3 times negative 4.7 is going to give us 14.1. And then plus 8.9, we can do that addition to give us an answer of 23. Now, after that, we just have minus negative 15.23. So there is parentheses, but there's no operations happening in the parentheses. So this actually isn't a third group, even though it looks like it. So we're just going to bring that down. We're not going to change anything about negative 15.23. We can now rewrite each piece of the expression that we've simplified together. So that would be 0.9 times 23 minus negative 15.23. So we kind of taken care of the P. There's no E, there's no exponents or roots. So now between multiplication and subtraction, PEMDAS says multiplication comes first. So we're doing the 0.9 times 23, which gives us 20.7. And lastly, we can now address the subtraction, which in this case is actually addition because you're subtracting a negative. We're going to change that to 20.7 plus 15.23, which gives us a final answer of 35.93. So it's really important to be organized when you're simplifying step by step, especially with these types of problems that have a lot of operations with even multiple groupings. But just really, again, take it step by step and make sure you follow PEMDAS. Make sure you're following that order of operations.